Page 10, B the center. 4/4 time, key of F major's got one flat, all the B's are flat. Oh boy. You look at this and you think, well, this isn't too bad rhythm-wise, it's quarter notes and half notes, but stick around. At the beginning in the right hand, just half notes. Don't forget the B flat. I recommend a second finger on that B flat by itself, the second note in the second measure, so you can go back to here. If you don't want to put thumb on the black key on that, then you're going to have to reach down with, like so. The pen will connect the notes, but that's the best I can do. I still think it's better though if you can put a thumb on the blue and then here. Second line, second measure, this is where the piece starts. They're saying here, the melody is the top note. If you can, play it a little louder than the other. If you can't, don't worry about it. That's tied. You're going to hold that down for 4 counts, and then eighth notes, 3 and 4. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Fifth finger on the 8th. Top of page 11, you're in this position to start, and then the second measure they want the thumb on the whole note. Here, that's fine. Then it's 1, 3. So now we're here, thumbs on the G. Tricky, isn't it? That's about it for what we got. On top of page 12, you're starting out in this position. Third finger. And for the C's, the first one is with fifth finger and then fourth finger. Doesn't matter which C you play fourth finger on. If you want to wait and play fourth finger on the half note C, that's fine. That's fine too. The point is you just need the little finger available for the D. And then for the last measure, the first line, it's a fifth finger now on the half note. Second line, second measure. You're here, and then fifth finger for the eighth notes. Last line on page 12. You're here. I recommend you put a thumb on that rather than third finger. See, look at the last measure of the second line. You're here. You're playing that F with third finger, but when you go to the second ending, that is, you'll skip that next line and go down to the bottom. I recommend you play that half note F with a thumb. That way you're in position. Then it's a 1, 4, 2, 5, 1, 5. Like so. Left hand. The left hand is providing some nice rhythm. And keep it out of the way. The melody's in the right hand. So it's here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lovely. Second line. 1, 2. Just play it all legato. Last measure on page 10. Just come down. Page 11. Now third finger on the F. Then fourth finger on the E. Then back. Third line down, last measure, you're here. And then slide, or you can either slide off and do a 1, 2 for the first note in the last line there on page 11. Here. Or you can play it 4-2. Your choice, whichever you feel is better. And then they sang a 5-1. Well, if you're using 4-2, 5-1 is fine. But if you slide off, it's easier if you use 4-1 on the D, B flat, and then come up with second finger, and then 3-1. You have to decide which fingering you want to use. On page 12, the first line's not a problem. The second line, we have a C sharp here, then a C natural. natural. And then here, 5-1 is fine. 5-1, and then here. We've had this before. However you finger it before, finger it the same way here. It's the same thing. Except now it's a F instead of a D. And I recommend, if you're going to do that, I recommend you use 4-2 on the F B flat, because you're here. If you finger this 2-1, then on the quarter note do a 4-2 and then a 3 and then a 4-2 again. If you finger it 3-2 at this is the beginning of the third line, then you can go ahead and do a 3-1 and then a 2, whichever. If you don't want for the 8th note thing at the end, if you don't want to put the thumb on that, just reach over second finger. You'll have to decide on the fingering you're going to use. Pencil it in once you figure it out, and then stick with it. Now, last line on page 12, you're here, and they're saying 2. You still do it with thumb if you want to. And then a 4-1, or the first measure. If you do a 2, 4, then it's a 5-1. And then the last note's an F. Put the hands together. Let's see what this rhythm does. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Make sure you hold these half notes down the full time. 2. So, there's no rests in here to speak of. There's a little bit at the bottom. Otherwise, you're always playing notes in both hands. So hold these notes down as best you can. Dynamic wise, it starts out the dynamics are suggestions. They say sort of soft at the top. That's the top note in the right hand. Everything else has to be soft. It's a gentle piece. You're setting the atmosphere here. This is introduction. And here, you could actually come up a little bit here if you want. Once you start the song, you bring that out. Still gentle. Now at the end of the first line on page 11, here, lift up on the right hand. It's a new phrase. Before you go to the second, we want a little silence in the right hand. The left hand stays down, it's legato. So throughout the whole thing. Last line on page 11, you're here. Before you play those 8th notes, lift up, this time both hands, so just a little bit of silence. It's a new phrase. Now there is a repeat sign, a first and second ending over on page 12. So when you get done with the first ending, you'll repeat back to the reverse repeat sign back on page 10. You see that, and do the other verse, and then come back and do the second ending, and then end it up. When I do the play with me, because of the page turn, I'm not going to bother with that. We're just going to play the first ending and then immediately go to the second ending. It won't sound quite right, but you'll get the idea. And then at the end, the fermata, I'm going to hold that F in the left hand, 4 counts instead of 2 for the fermata, and then everything comes up together. So let's talk pedal, because we need the pedal to help us smooth this out and to add some overtones. I encourage you, as always, to learn this piece without pedal first, so you can hear everything. That way, when you add pedal, you can hear exactly what it's doing to the sound. At the beginning, it's all legato pedal for the most part. I'm going to change it basically with the harmony, but I don't want to smear it up. So sometimes I got to change it in between. Like in the first measure here. Change it with each measure, it's fine. Then lift it up at the first measure, the second line, and so the left hand's by itself there for the 8th notes. And then here. And I lift it up for these. I don't pedal that. And throughout this whole piece, anytime I get this, I lift the pedal. I don't want to smear this. I don't want that. Blech. So starting with the second line, second measure again, when the verse starts, it's here. Lift the pedal up. Then at the top of page 11, in the last measure of the first line, I'm going to pedal it on twice. On the first beat, and I'm going to change the pedal on the third beat. And then lift it up with the right hand, it's a new phrase. The left hand stays down. And at the bottom of the page, I pedal the first measure, change it on the second measure, but I don't pedal this. Don't want that. So it's the last line of the page 11 is here. And on the last measure of that, I'm going to pedal every 2 beats. It's here, change. And then I'm going to change it again on the next, every 2 beats here. Now at the top of page 12, I can pedal this whole measure. Change. I'm going to change here too, so it's here. You don't have to, you can pedal the whole measure if you wanted. I just think it's blurry. The second line, all the way across on this line, I'm going to pedal it every 2 beats. I'm going to change it, so it's here. Third line down. For this, I don't pedal those. And for the last line down, then change it. And then at the end, the pedal and the hands all come up together. That's the pedal. It's fairly straightforward. You can experiment with the pedal. I just encourage you to listen very carefully with what the pedal is doing to the sound. Don't just automatically pedal everything. Now, I haven't been talking much about page turns in these books. You got to figure out on these things, if you don't have it memorized, how to get this page turned without messing up the beat, because the beat goes on. You can't hesitate. So at the bottom of page 11, that last measure, going on, where are you going to change the, well, again, you experiment. Where do you feel you can change it at? I mean, both hands are busy. If you memorize the last measure on page 11 here, if you can memorize that much, then you can change it, and right here, immediately after you play that note, then reach up with the left hand and get to changing the page. Then you have about 1 measure, almost 1 measure to get the page changed, because right here, immediately change the page, turn the page, as you're doing this, and then the next measure is memorized, but the page is turned now, so you're ready to go on. You're ready to go on, and that's how you might do it. You have to experiment. And then whenever it's time to go back, again, while the left hand is doing this, the right hand can reach up and turn the page back if you do it quickly. You may have to practice the page turn. I'd like to play this with you slowly. I'm going to do pages 10 and 11. I'm going to stop. I'm going to turn the page. I'll count us in again, and then we'll do page 12. And we'll just do the page straight on down. We're not going to do the repeats. You can do that on your own. So I'll give us 4 counts, and let's try this together slowly to double check the notes and the rhythms. 1, 2, ready, go. page. 1, 2, ready, go. Down to the last line. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3,